Hi guys, this is Beekeeper Charlotte from CarolinaHoneybees.com. I had planned to come to you from the bee yard this morning. However, hot temperatures and high humidity and grumpy bees made me decide to change my location. And I wanted to make contact with people today because today is a very special day. No, it has nothing to do with the eclipse. I'm really tired of hearing about that myself. Today is National Honeybee Day. It's a day that was set aside by various organizations to introduce people to the honeybee and to bring to the forefront the importance of honeybees and everything that they do for us in our lives. The honeybee has been under attack the last few years, maybe since the mid-'80s. We have had more and more situations where the honeybees were dying at much greater rates than normal. And that's been very difficult for us beekeepers because it's also expensive. We hate to see our bees die, but bees aren't cheap. And when we have our bees, a lot of bees die during the season, then we have to replace those bees. Hi, Hillary. So I know for myself, a few years ago, I had to spend maybe like $1,000 one spring just to start back my colonies that had died during the winter. And I'm a master beekeeper. I don't know it all, but I know a lot, and I try to keep good records and, you know, not keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So it's a bad time for bees, and things do seem to be getting a little better. We don't really know why the bees are having all the problems. You know, we were hoping for a silver bullet so that, you know, researchers could come in and say, hey, I know what's wrong with the bees. It's this, and then we could fix this. But we haven't been able to find that. We haven't been able to find that one problem that will help the bees. Good morning, Curtis. So we struggle. We know that new pests and disease have come into the country from other parts of the world, and this affects our bees because they have no resistance to it. We know that pesticide use plays a part. I'm not convinced that it is the sole issue at hand, but it does play a part. Loss of environment. Where we used to have a lot of weeds along the edges of the gardens in modern agriculture, now we try to get rid of those weeds, and that causes the honeybee to have a less diverse diet. And we all know that a diverse diet is good for any live thing, and honeybees are no exception. So this day was set aside to be a day for various organizations to have honeybee events in which the public who may not know much about honeybees could get involved. And I have my little honeybee. This is my mascot here today. Now this is a worker bee. A worker bee, guess what, does all the work, and it's a woman, a female, so are you surprised? But the worker bee is the one that stings you, but unfortunately, she's also the one that goes out and gathers the forage, gathers the nectar and pollen, and she makes the honey. So she is a very important bee in the colony. She also makes up the largest population of the colony. Now, why do we like bees so well? Well, we like honey, and most anyone knows that honeybees make honey, right? But what some people fail to realize is how many bees it takes to make honey. This is a 1 teaspoon little measuring spoon. 1 teaspoon. Not very much will be held in there. Well, it takes a honeybee, it takes 12 honeybees to make this much honey in their lifetime. You see, in the summer, honeybees actually work themselves to death. They don't regenerate cells like we do. When their wings wear out, they're done. A worker honeybee will make about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her lifetime. So it would take 12 bees their whole lifetime to make this little amount of honey. So for one worker bee, she will make less than the smallest little scoop of honey in her lifetime. And that explains why honeybees are such good workers to work together in large numbers in their hive. By being a social insect and sharing the workload, they're able to make a lot of honey. In fact, if all the conditions are right, they make much more honey than they need to survive through the year. That allows beekeepers to take a little for ourselves. Now, if you are not a greedy beekeeper, you always try to leave the bees plenty of honey for their winter. Over time, experience and speaking with other local beekeepers will teach you how much honey your bees need to make it through the winter season when there's no flowers available. And yeah, we make mistakes sometimes and things go wrong, and I'll have one colony that has more honey than it needs and another one that doesn't. And again, it's that mistake thing. You learn from your mistakes. Well, we don't just get honey from bees. We also have beeswax. And beeswax is wonderful. I hope in the upcoming months as we get into winter, I will be able to show you some of the things that I do with beeswax. Candles and different kinds of lip balm, and I even put it in my soap that I make. You can do a lot with this. Now, honeybees are known for honey, but that's not the most important contribution they give to our world. It's pollination. And we have, honeybees are just perfect. A honeybee colony is the perfect pollinator for a commercial operation. If you have 100 acres of almond trees or apple trees or blueberry bushes, you can truck in a large colonies of honeybees. Now, a large colony of honeybees can have 60,000 to 100,000 bees in a box. Hi, Julie. And the reason this is so good for commercial beekeepers or for agriculture in general is that because those bees can be housed in those square hives, they can be stacked on a truck at night, covered with a net, and moved 1,000 miles to another crop. Now, that allows the farmer to pay a beekeeper to put the bees in the location where it's needed, when it's needed. And he may need 1,000 colonies there for 2 or 3 weeks while something is blooming. But then the rest of the year, he doesn't need those bees, and there's nothing really much for them to eat. Now, this is good for agriculture, and that's why the honeybee has become so important to us. However, it's not necessarily the best thing for the honeybee because it is stressful, and no matter how much the farmer or the beekeeper tries to alleviate the stress that this causes, the honeybees are still being, contained in a box and for days at a time sometimes. And then when they get to the field to work, they're only eating one thing. They only have apple nectar and pollen or blueberry or oranges or whatever it is. So it's a difficult situation that on a moral basis, if you love the bees, you kind of feel sorry for the bees. But you have to be realistic too, in that there is a money side, and agriculture has to have pollination. And we have native pollinators. Well, why don't we use those? They don't live in large enough colonies, and they're not as easy to put on a truck and move around as a large colony of honeybees can be. And another reason to think about is that our honeybees, it is about a lot more than honey. And the things that are affecting our honeybees, some of those environmental and disease, but mostly environmental. Some of those environmental issues is also affecting the other native pollinators. Bumblebees, not as many as they used to be. They seem to be having disease problems too. Butterflies, moths, all these little pieces fit together. And that is why some researchers are saying that the honeybees are actually the canary in the coal mine. A long time ago when they would be working in the coal mine and they had no modern way to measure the air quality, they would take a canary with them. And as long as the canary was happy and singing and doing its thing, they knew that the air was probably good. But if the canary got sick or died, they knew it was time to get out of there. So we wonder now, are our honeybees trying to tell us something? Is this an environmental indicator that things are messed up? Of course, we already know that things are messed up on many levels. Things that you can do to help honeybees. Even if you don't want to be a beekeeper, you can make good decisions when you go buy plants for your landscaping needs. Choose one that provides nectar and pollen for bees. Don't necessarily believe the little tickets at some of the big box stores that says be safe. Ask questions about that. What exactly does that mean? Because there's been some hoo-ha in the news about things being sprayed on these plants that are actually bad for bees. And so then it's kind of like you're saying, well, I'm planting this flower to provide you nectar. Here, come and get it. But, oh, I forgot to tell you there's something in there that may kill you. So you kind of lured them in, and it's not meant to be that way. Those things are not done on purpose. They're done to keep other pests off the plant so the plant will be beautiful. So make good decisions in your landscaping. Make good decisions with pesticide use. In a perfect situation, we would never have to use any pesticides, but sometimes we do. So when you feel like you really need to, make a good decision. Sevendust. My grandpa, when I was a little girl, he loved to have vegetable gardens. And I can remember the Sevendust on that garden that looked like just a snowstorm. And, I have a garden too sometimes. And I know that there we have the Japanese beetles and things, and there are some natural things that are much easier to use. But I tell people, some people really want that Sevendust because that's what they've used all their life. So I say, well, okay, if you feel like you have to use Seven, instead of using the powder, and the powder's bad because the bees, even if they're not working that crop, they may sit down on that leaf that has the Seven on it, and then it sticks to their little hairy bodies, and they take it back to the hive, and it ends up being fed to the babies. That's why the dust, anything dust, is very dangerous. So if I tell them, look, if you really have to do it, don't use dust, use the liquid. Spray late in the day when the bees are pretty much gone home. And by morning, some of that toxicity will have abated and the bees will not be carrying dust back. Same thing with fire ant killer. I tell you, these fire ants, they're crazy and I hate them. And they bite you and they spread and they're hard to get rid of. Sometimes, especially in the spring when they first come out, you will see people's yards that look like it has snowed there. Well, it's spring. The bees are wanting to build and raise babies. They need pollen. They try to store enough pollen back in the fall to last them all winter. But what if we had a drought and they didn't store enough pollen? Well, they go out looking for anything that resembles pollen. So bees have been known to actually collect that fire ant powdered poison and take it back to the beehive. And you can guess the results of that. So when you're choosing a fire ant preventative, get one that's granular. At least the granules, when you put it on the little fire ant hills, at least the granulars are less likely to be picked up by the honeybees, and it doesn't drift as bad. So those are just some things that you can do, that anyone can do to help honeybees. Now, we have a lot of, new beekeeper information on the internet, and that's great. I mean, that's where we're at right now, right? But there's also a lot of disinformation on the internet. Before putting anything strange in your bee colony, some great, solution or some great way to do something that somebody in Timbuktu has done with their bees, ask a lot of people before you do things that are not approved treatments, because some of them will work and they may work better and they may be better. But sometimes people do things that I'm just like, oh my gosh, don't do that. Please don't do that to your bees. And I try to be very open. Hi, Mike. Good morning. I try to be very open, and I don't tell you how to manage your bees because I don't know it all. I learn every day. I learn from new beekeepers because beekeeping is always evolving. Our environment changes. Some of the diseases and pests changes. If you want to be a good beekeeper, you cannot get stuck into the rut of, hey, listen to me, I know it all, because I don't. But don't listen to everybody that has a YouTube video. It doesn't mean they know what they're doing. And sometimes when we do treatments on bees, we may try something, whether it's for small hive beetles, which is a pest in the beehive, or it's varroa mites, which is a flea-like mite that sucks blood from the bees and spreads disease. Sometimes the things we do to try to combat those issues causes harm. You may not see it. You may not see piles of dead bees outside your beehive, but it doesn't mean that you haven't killed brood or that you haven't caused some of the drones to be sterile. There are things that happen that we don't see an obvious reason for. So be careful with what you do. If I hear of a new technique that I want to try, I research that a good bit. And there will always be some people that say, yeah, that's a good idea, and some people that say, no, don't do that. And you do have to be the deciding factor, because in the end, it is your responsibility. Your bees live or die because of what you do or don't do. Now, having said that, there are times we do the very best we can, and our bees still have trouble. I'm a little bit behind on my beekeeping work because I've had a rough year this year. My dad passed away, and I've been having to help my mom. And it's been hot in South Carolina. I mean, like high humidity, hot. And I haven't been in the bee yard quite as much as I would have due to my time constraint and the heat. So there's going to be times that we let our bees down. But I think that as long as we do it with a good heart and with the right goal of being a conscientious and good beekeeper, we have to find peace in that. You know, we have to enjoy that, because that's all we can do. We can't control everything. And that's the last thought I want to leave you with today. One of the reasons, because becoming a new beekeeper is challenging, that is the major reason that I developed two things. One thing is my ebook that is on sale on my website. My ebook is a comprehensive guide of what you go through your first year with bees. And how I came up with that idea, I didn't just sit down and say, hey, I want to write a book and make money. No, I used my years, over 10 years of experience in helping new beekeepers and finding out that for some of them, year after year, they made the same mistakes. You know, I mean, not the same people necessarily, but I know what beekeepers in my area tend to overlook. You know, maybe they're doing a great job, and they're doing a real good job on feeding their bees and making sure their bees have water, but they forget to think about varroa, or vice versa. They take care of the varroa, and then their bees starve to death. So my book is under $10. It's for sale on my website, and it is just packed of information of this specific kind. It's things you need to know that first year of beekeeping, regardless of where you live. And the other thing that I developed is my online class. I've got an online class that has hours of videos, and it will take you completely through your first year, and it even delves in deeper. It talks about some of the, not only do you need to do this, but why do you need to do this? And I try as much as possible not to use my opinion, but to use facts that I know that other beekeepers have done. And you can also buy that online on my website. It's $37. It's a bargain. And doing these types of things, if you have friends that are thinking about becoming a beekeeper, or maybe you're not a beekeeper yet, you're planning to keep bees, invest in some good materials to learn what you're getting into. Beekeeping is not hard, but it does involve hard work. It also involves a fair amount of money at startup. So before you go and waste hundreds of dollars in heartbreak, you know, research and learn what you can. Avoid as many mistakes as you can. And then as you go along through your beekeeping journey, keep a journal of what you're doing. I have journals that date back 10, 11 years. Once in a while, I like to get them out and just kind of page through them and say, oh, on this day in, 2007, persimmon was blooming. Or, I have one, I can graft queens. I don't like doing it. It sounds great, but it doesn't work for me. I can do it, I just don't enjoy it. So in one of my journals, I don't remember the year, but I have got a notation that said, this worked, but do not do this again. This is not fun for you. I wrote a note to myself. So, learning before you get started and growing as you go, that is the way to be a successful beekeeper. And you're going to have bees that die, people. You're going to have it happen. And you're going to feel bad about it if you love your bees, and most beekeepers do. But try not to feel bad about it. Try to use that as a learning experience. What did you learn? What happened? Was it something you did or you didn't do? Or was it something that was completely out of your control? Because our bees, as much as we would like to treat them like a dog or a cat or a cow or a pet goat, they're nothing like that. Our bees are not domesticated, but they are such wonderful creatures that we can work with them and manage them. You're not going to make bees do what you want them to do. You have to work with their natural tendencies, things that bees do already, and then mold that into getting the results that you hope to get. I hope all of you have a great weekend. I'm going to. Most of my activities are going to involve air conditioning. So I'm going to be in a store in air conditioning, in the house in air conditioning, or in my honey house making beeswax candles and things in the air conditioning. And I appreciate you stopping in. I hope you enjoy my blog, CarolinaHoneybees.com. You can go to my blog. I try to post something new every week. Sometimes if I'm really busy with bees, it doesn't happen, but I mean to. My blog, if you'll go back through that, I've been keeping that thing a long time, and there is some good, useful information in there. And so you can find a lot of free information on my blog. It will help me continue to do this if you will share our private Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group where people are kind to you when you ask a question, even if it's a dumb question. And yes, sometimes questions can be dumb. It's not mean you're dumb. It just, or I feel that my questions are dumb sometimes. But you can feel free to ask anything you need to in our Facebook group without being ridiculed. You can, of course, then subscribe to my email list. I do not share your email with other people. I hate spam. Nothing makes me madder than to give my email address to someone and then receive 10 or 20 emails from what? So that doesn't happen with me. So email list, blog, Facebook group, and it helps me to be able to have the time to share my love of the honeybee with other people. If you will share these things and get other people to come join us. Nobody's going to get rich in beekeeping, trust me. But I enjoy doing this, and I hope to get to continue. I hope all of you have a great weekend. If you live in the area where the eclipse is taking place, be careful because, gosh almighty, people have gone crazy over this thing, and it's going to be very crowded. So I have my gas in the car. I have my milk and bread, just like when we're going to have a little 2-inch snow. I'm prepared for the eclipse, and I hope that you guys will be careful out there. If you live in an area where varroa mites are an issue, what have you done about it? It's the middle of August. It's almost the end of August. We want healthy nurse bees that will be raising healthy fall bees that will last through the winter. So if you haven't done something about varroa and you choose to, you may use a different type of bee, and you may be trying a different factor so that you don't treat for varroa, and that's fine. I respect that. But if you do treat for varroa, now's the time. So get your plan in place. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you for joining me on National Honeybee Day. And take care. Keep buzzing. This is Beekeeper Charlotte at CarolinaHoneybees.com. Bye.